They say some executions were meant to kill the body, but this one was designed to break a nation's soul. Francois Damiens wasn't born a monster, but the path he stumbled into pushed him toward an act that shook France to its core. And trust me, it starts darker than you expect.
It's January the 5th, 1757. We're at the Palace of Versailles in Paris, where Robert François Damiens is biding his time.
And here's where it gets even stranger. The man who nearly brought France to its knees didn't come from power, privilege, or politics. Francois Damiens was just a servant, a working class nobody moving from job to job, doing whatever the royal world needed done. He floated around noble households, always close enough to hear the whispers of the elite, but never close enough to belong. He grew up in a fractured life, constant money problems, unstable work, drifting from one employer to another. People called him unreliable, even volatile, and that resentment, it slowly built like a bad storm brewing behind cloudy eyes. Imagine spending years serving people who barely looked at you, carrying their frustrations while drowning in your own. That bitterness became his shadow, and gradually it swallowed him whole. What would you have done living in that pressure cooker every single day?
Que voulez-vous? Louis le XVe, que Dieu nous a donné pour roi.
The waking ceremony.
But wait, it's about to get more shocking, because on January 5th, 1757, everything snapped. Picture a cold evening at Versailles. King Louis XV steps outside, relaxed, thinking it's just another quiet walk among his guards. Out of nowhere, Damiens slips through the crowd, not running, not shouting, just moving with this eerie calm like he'd rehearsed the moment 1,000 times in his head. He gets close, too close. Then the blade flashes. It wasn't a deep stab, not the dramatic strike you'd imagine, more like a sharp jab, a wound to the side. But the symbolism? Oh, that sent France into panic mode. Some witnesses screamed, others froze. People had no idea if this was part of a larger conspiracy, if the king was dying, or if the monarchy was under attack. Damiens didn't run. He just stood there, pulled down by guards, swallowed by a furious crowd. The man seemed almost dazed, like he realized the gravity of what he'd done only after the knife left his hand. And here's the crazy part. The stab wound wasn't even fatal, but the reaction it triggered changed everything. Would you have expected that one cut to send an entire kingdom spinning? And here's where everything goes from chaotic to downright terrifying. The moment Damiens stabbed the king, the crowd didn't hesitate. They swarmed him instantly. Not a second of confusion, not a breath of delay. People tackled him, clawed at him, and held him down with this furious mix of fear and loyalty. They thought France was under attack, that someone was trying to end the monarchy right in front of them. Guards ripped him away from the mob and dragged him inside, and that's where the nightmare really began. Before there was even a trial, they interrogated him brutally, desperate to know if someone bigger was pulling the strings. They burned him, stretched him, pressed him, anything to force a confession. France was terrified that this wasn't one angry servant, but part of a massive conspiracy. And the scary thing, Damiens had nothing more to give them, just his own broken motives. But wait, it gets even heavier, because when it came time for the trial, France didn't treat this as just another crime. They saw it as regicide, the ultimate betrayal. Even though King Louis XV survived, even though the wound wasn't fatal, the intent was enough. Attacking the king meant attacking God's chosen ruler, the very foundation the country believed it stood on. Parliament gathered, and they didn't need long to decide. Damiens was guilty, fully, completely, unforgivably guilty. There was nothing but contempt, nothing but severity, nothing but an unwillingness to see him as a human being. They aimed at the whole world to be enlightened by his misdeeds. A very deep warning indeed, which would never allow anyone to raise a hand against the crown again. And what about the penalty? Killing him was not nearly the only thing that was being done. It was a sacrificial offering that served to communicate that sin against the king was indeed a violation of the laws of heaven and earth. France did not want only its citizens, but also every foreign ruler, every possible traitor, and every future rebel to be shown what fate awaited anyone attempting to usurp the throne. Just when it seemed that the sentence could not be any harsher, the punishment voiced an evil that very few could even think of. the capital of France metamorphosed into a dark theater as the day of the execution of Robert Francois Damiens drew near. The story of the king's would-be murderer spread like wildfire, and at dawn, large crowds were already on the move to the Place de Grève. They were all eager to catch the promised sight of the most dreadful punishment probably ever to be inflicted in France in the last 100 years. The workers were busy for hours getting the execution area ready. There were wooden barriers, armed guards, ropes, and platforms all properly arranged with the same cruel precision. The hangmen were getting ready for their parts. Clergy members were present to officiate the moment as a sermon, and soldiers were in the area to quell any disturbances or to capture the escaping rebels afterwards. Everything about the already elaborate staging was calculated, carefully designed to show that anyone who laid a finger on the king would suffer in ways that are beyond imagination. The aura was saturated with fright, gruesome curiosity, and the heavy awareness that the whole thing was a huge reminder to the masses. It was not merely punishment, it was a menace. The moment Damiens was at last dragged into the square, silence, uneasy and tense, enveloped the crowd. He was fixed to a stout wooden framework, and as the first stage of torture commenced, there was no escape for him. The executioners stepped up to him with red-hot tongs, the metal shimmering like tiny suns. They applied the tongs to his arms, chest, and legs, taking away pieces of skin as the heat cauterized and burned at the same time. Later, the witnesses stated that the odor was unforgettable, skin burning mingled with smoke and blood. Yet the torment was not over. Exactly as the court had ordered, the executioners poured sulfur, which was burning, into the open wounds, and this made him shake spasmodically against the ropes. Then there was molten lead, hot oil, and boiling resin, all directed straight into the lacerated flesh. Each new liquid made a hissing sound when it made contact with the exposed tissue. Damiens was howling in a way that was described as inhuman, but he did not lose his consciousness, no matter how torturous it was. The pain got him past even what most thought the human body could take. The crowd was a mixture of horrified and fascinated witnesses. Some collapsed, others resorted to prayer. Many just looked, not able to move, realizing that this was not merely torture, it was a warning inscribed on the body of a man who dared to injure the king. And now, the moment that would haunt Paris for decades. Damiens' punishment escalated to what history remembers as the most grotesque execution in French memory. Drawing by horses. 4 massive horses were harnessed to his limbs, each trained to pull in opposite directions. The goal was simple in theory: rip him apart limb by limb to show the consequences of striking the king. But here's the grim twist. It didn't go as planned. The horses strained and bucked, but Damiens' body didn't give up. His arms and legs held stubbornly, refusing to tear. Executioners shouted, spurred, and repositioned the animals multiple times, sweat dripping from their brows. The crowd gasped, some turning away, others pressing forward, unable to look away. It was chaos, a messy, horrifying spectacle where the tormentors struggled as much as the victim. Every effort contorted his body into bizarre positions, dislocating and breaking bones. Yet Damiens still kept on screaming and still kept on living. It was like his great stamina humorously defied the court's authority. The witnesses would afterward describe the event's surreal quality. A man torn apart in front of hundreds, and his suffering lasting longer than even the most pessimistic of guesses. The terror was real, the drama unplanned, and the moral, paradoxically, was feeling more like terror than order. Finally, after many unsuccessful tries and hours of torturous suffering, more horses were brought in, and the executioners eventually managed to get the upper hand. With accurate tugs and refined brutality, the body parts of Damiens came apart. His last seconds of life were horrifying. Some informants even claim he was still moving, his mouth flickering as if he wanted to say something. His last words, either whispered or groaned, were just calls for mercy. "My God, pity me." The audience's response was a combination of admiration, horror, and skepticism. Some people passed out while others covered their faces, unable to come to terms with what they were witnessing. Paris received a lesson, but not the one the kings wanted. What the kings wanted was to instill fear, but instead, the event became a memory towering over the kingdom as a symbol of extreme cruelty. A warning indeed, but also a blemish on the crown that not even the richest of gold or the fanciest of celebrations could erase.
Cieux qui conservent encore dans les glaces de l'âge les feux impurs de la concupiscence, finit par chercher de nouveaux plaisirs dans les vils restes de la licence publique.
And here's the part that really changed history. News of Damiens' execution spread across Europe like wildfire. Foreign courts and nobles watched in horror, some applauding the king's authority, others recoiling at the sheer cruelty. Within France, the reaction was equally complex: fear, disgust, and a gnawing sense that the monarchy had overstepped. The brutality of the punishment sparked serious debate about the use of torture. Intellectuals, writers, and philosophers began questioning whether terror should ever enforce law. Over the next decades, these conversations helped accelerate reforms, slowly pushing France toward more systematic, humane approaches to justice. Regicide, meanwhile, remained the ultimate crime, but the Damiens spectacle became a cautionary tale. Excessive punishment could backfire, fueling revolutionary sentiments rather than quelling them. The gruesome theatrics planted seeds that 30 years later would bloom into the French Revolution. So what do you think? Was this justice or pure cruelty? Damiens' story still shocks centuries later. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this insane tale gripping, hit like and subscribe. Trust me, the next historical horror story I've got will blow your mind even more.